Hi, it's Kane Hodder, better known as Jason from Friday the 13th. You're watching Convention Junkies. Keep watching or I'll do this to you. Oh, I'm going to kill you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Yasmina. I'm with Rue Morgue magazine, and I'm sitting here with the legendary motherfucking Kane Hodder. Give it up!
Sorry about her language.
Oh, sorry. If you've ever seen my show or read my column, it's just part of my lexicon.
He's an actor. He's all about it. He's all good.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Awesome. Excellent. It's the best way to raise your children, to be honest.
Speaking of which, I have to tell a story now that she brought that up. I was at a convention in Lafayette, Louisiana, and there was a little guy came by the table. Boy, that mic is strong. Little guy came by the table with his dad. He was 4, and he had a chainsaw in his head, costume. And I thought it'd be funny and say, hey, do you realize you have a chainsaw in your head? And I'm not kidding you. He looked at me and said, it's a fucking costume. He was 4. I loved it, and I ended up taking a picture. Him and I, it's in my phone, him and I flipping each other off.
Beautiful.
4 years old, man.
I love
It's
it.
a fucking costume.
I'm not a fan of kids and babies, but kids like that are pretty cool.
And I asked his dad about the cursing, and he said, we let him do it anywhere except for school.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's really the best thing, but still.
Yeah. Just as long as they don't get detention or have to call the parents into the school, waste their time. Well, speaking of stories, you mentioned a story. I got a story too.
Uh-oh.
So it's a great honor to be here sitting with you, Kane Hodder, because the first Friday the 13th movie I watched was part 7. So I think it came out in '88, and
Correct.
I think I was around 7 or 8 years old. And I watched it during the day.
Around 7 or 8?
Yeah.
Don't you know when you were born?
I don't want to do math.
Oh.
That's what calculators are for. And yeah, I just remember watching it during the day and being like scared out of my mind and riding my bicycle back home during the day. And I kept turning around to make sure Jason wasn't behind me. And
With a weed whacker?
Yeah, like I legitimately thought that it was real. Like this was a non-fiction movie because my parents are very religious, so like they believed in, Satan and shit like that.
Oh,
So
boy.
I watched this movie at a friend's house and I'm like so fucking scared, just like riding my bicycle. I kept on like looking back, thinking that you would be back there behind me. And I always, I have a connection, like a personal connection with part 7, like because of that vivid memory. And the first one I watched, and like later in life, being a huge fan of the franchise, even getting your face tattooed on me. And I genuinely believe that you brought such a brutality to that character. Like, the way, like, even though it's like you're wearing a mask, we can't see your face, but you're pissed. You're
I tried to be, yeah.
you're
I tried
fucking pissed. Like, you brought that, that actual anger, like, hostility and, like, severe, like, fear in the character. So I wanted to know, personally, what are some of your childhood fears? What were you afraid of when you were a child?
I never had any of the typical fears.
Like ghosts and stuff?
Ghosts and heights and that kind of stuff. It never bothered me. And by the way, part 7 is my favorite as well.
It's so good. It's the
Yeah.
best one.
And it has my favorite fire stunt that I've ever done. And, that movie came out, like you said, 1988. May 13th, which was a Friday,
Yes.
is when it was released in theaters, and it happened to be my now wife's birthday.
Oh, Susan, right?
Yep. And so she's like, "What are we doing for my birthday?" I said, "Well, we're going to the Chinese theater to watch me kill people." Oh, great.
How romantic.
She stayed with me, but yeah, it was kind of interesting that it was her birthday, and I just wish the movie hadn't been so destroyed by
The MPAA.
the MPAA, causing them to cut everything out of it.
Yeah.
There was so many good makeup effects and stuff, and none of it ended up in the movie. Every single kill in the movie was cut to almost nothing. And the movie's still decent, but it would have been so much better with all that stuff in
I know.
it. And,
Yeah.
you know, you probably heard this a million times, but when I first put the makeup on in John Beekler's shop as a makeup test before we started shooting, I did movements in the mirror with the entire suit and makeup and everything on, just to see what I liked, because, you know, I've always been a fan of the character. And I thought, now this is my chance to play the character that I love. I got to do whatever I can to do justice to the character. So I did movements, and that's where I came up with the breathing thing, because I thought when I was standing staring at myself, it didn't look that threatening to me. I mean, it's a little scary because of how I looked, but I didn't look like I was about to explode. And then I tried the breathing thing, and I thought, oh, that works, because now it looks like any second he's just going to go on a rampage.
You certainly personified anger. Like that, I just remember later after watching part 7, I'm like, well, now I have to go back to the beginning and watch all the other ones. And you're right, like I love them all, each uniquely for their standalone reasons, you know, and
Right.
like, but the other Jasons, in my personal opinion, they don't emote, you know, like it's like Michael Myers doesn't really emote. But there's just something about the way that you played him, especially in part 7, where it was like you, like I said, like you were fucking pissed. And like you could tell how angry Jason really was. And it's a very amazing thing that a person who doesn't show their face can actually, you know,
I know, it's very...
accomplish that.
The two things an actor uses to be scary is facial expressions and voice.
Yeah.
I didn't get to use either one of those.
And you
so-
accomplished it very, very well. I mean, to
And
the point
I think
where
a lot of people that played Michael in the past, and even Jason before, assumed that, well, there's nothing I can do, really. I can't
Yeah.
be scary. And I just took it a different way, and thinking, well, I have to do something to look scary. And the first time somebody said to me at a convention, they said, what I love about what you do as Jason is when you're standing and let's say you're going to go in this direction, and they say, I love how you turn your head and then your body. And the first time they said that, I said, I do? I didn't even realize I did that. It wasn't something on purpose. It was just something that felt right.
Yeah.
So that's when I started really realizing whatever feels natural seems to read well. So
Yeah, and I think that's basically what defines talent. You were very talented.
well, thank you. But we did Part 7 in 1988. We did Jason Takes Manhattan the following year. And, not till after Part 7 came out did anyone want to have me at a convention. And that's when I first started doing Fangoria conventions. And so for the time, like part 7 came out May 13th, as I said. Then we started shooting Jason Takes Manhattan in less than a year after that. But I had done a few conventions, and I used to, when I first started signing stuff, complimentary, by the way, which not anymore. But I used to sign Kane Hodder Jason #7 because I was at that point one of 7 guys that played the character. So I put #7. Once I found out I was doing part 8, I dropped that. So if you ever see that autograph somewhere, I think it's more valuable because I only did it for like 10 months.
Oh, that's good to know.
And now I've done the 7, 8, 9, 10 since 2000.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned John Buechler. I am a big fan of John Carl Buechler, and I was very saddened by his recent passing. And I always, like when I was younger, knew him as a director because he directed part 7. But then as I grew and became more and more of like an 80s horror fan, you know, like I love his work in special effects. Like every movie, like Spellcaster, like every movie that he's worked on where he's done the special effects, like practical effects for me is the way to go. And yeah, he was very skilled and his art was just beautiful. And another movie that I find of his that he directed that I find so underrated is Ghoulies 3. No one ever talks about Ghoulies 3.
Ghoulies go to college.
Yeah, I think it's the best one. And John Buechler definitely brings a nostalgia to his art. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but when I'm watching a movie, like it has like a feel where it's like I feel like I'm legit in my like parents' basement, you know what I mean? And the like campiness of it, it's like perfect for a sleepover. And Ghoulies 3, like I think he also did like that toilet. He like worked on like he made a toilet. Like,
Yeah.
it's just amazing. But yeah, did you keep up your relationship with him over the years? Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, you know,
he seemed like such a nice guy.
yeah, he was fantastic, and I'm sure you've heard the story that he's the reason I played Jason, the single reason, because I had done Prison, the movie.
With Viggo Mortensen.
With Vigo, and I was a stunt coordinator on the movie. Rennie Harlan directed it, and John asked me while we're shooting, he said, you know, there's a character that works for 2 days toward the end of shooting that is going to be in full prosthetics. And he said, would you be interested in playing that character? And I said, well, sure, because I had done a little bit, I think I had done Alligator before that, where I was, if you ever see the movie Alligator, I did Alligator 2 also, but Alligator, I was in the alligator suit.
You were in the gorilla suit too, in House 2.
Yes. So John said, you know, it's going to be an extensive makeup, a lot of prosthetics glued on, lenses, dentures, and full body suit, just like I ended up wearing in part 7. And he was so happy with how I worked in that kind of makeup that was 1987. Following year, he said, I'm going to direct the next Friday the 13th, and I was very happy for him. And he said, I want you to play Jason. I was like, what? And it was because of that character called Forsyth in Prison.
Yeah.
And Paramount was like, you know, kept saying, we don't know this guy. He doesn't have a name. And John just kept saying, just trust me. He's going to be good as the character. And they would say, well, he's not that tall and stuff like that. And he just kept saying, just trust me. And, you know, fortunately, we proved him correct when they liked what I did in Part 7, and I continued for the next 3 movies after that. But it was all because of Buechler.
Yeah.
And do you remember what I did in Ghoulies 3?
No. Were you the janitor?
Uh-huh. And how did I end up? You don't
Did you
get to
get
answer,
sucked
Mike.
into the toilet? I can't remember.
I get my ass in a mop bucket and go down the stairs at the school or whatever, something like that, wasn't it?
I'd have to say that one of my favorite things that you have done is your appearance on Arsenio Hall. Can you please talk about this?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I need to know, like, was he in on it? Like, did you talk to him beforehand? Or, like, tell me that.
They contacted me from the show and said, Arsenio wants you to be on the show as a guest. And I said, that's great. I don't think anybody really knows who I am, but I'd be happy to be a guest. And they said, well, we want you to be in character as Jason. And I was like, you want me to go on a talk show and I don't talk when I'm as the character? And they said, yeah, that's the whole point. He'll make it funny, which he did. But the funny part was that when I got to the studio before I put on the costume, and it was the real costume from Part 8, the one I wore, and I still had it. And he said, I just want to ask you a favor. He says, please don't fuck with me when you're as the character. And normally, if somebody asked me that, I'm like, okay, well, I am going to fuck with you now. But it was early in my career, so I respected it. But he said he goes, I'm really nervous about having you as the character in my presence. And I thought, okay. And, you know, it was fun to do. And he asked me questions. I was laughing the whole time under the mask, but you can't tell. But if you ever watch it again, you can see at the end where he says, thank you for coming on, and goes to shake my hand, and I shake his hand and I pull him towards me.
Yep.
And you can see him actually get really nervous and stand up and get away from me.
He like hides behind his chair.
Because he just was nervous, but that was really fun doing that.
I love that. I watch that video all the time. I fucking love it. Earlier you had mentioned ghosts, like how you had like never been afraid of ghosts when you were a kid, but you run the Hollywood Ghost Hunters group. Have you ever actually seen a ghost or spooky?
No.
Anything spooky ever happen? No encounters?
We've done investigations all over the place, all the famous places, Waverly's and Sloss Furnace, and you know, all these places that are so well known as with haunted stories and stuff. And you know, when I started Hollywood Ghost Hunters with my buddy Rick, who's also a stuntman, and I just showed somebody today a picture of me as Metal Beast. Did you ever see that movie?
Project Metal Beast?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was the Metal Beast, and there's a scene where I pick up Barry Bostwick by the neck and put him up in the air, and stunt double was my buddy Rick. That we've been working together since Lone Wolf McQuaid.
Mm-hmm. That was like your first movie, right? Or the first movie?
Fairly early on, but
David, is that with David Carradine?
yeah. And I played Carradine's #1 henchman or whatever. But Rick and I started the group, and when we founded the group, I told Rick that I think in my opinion, almost everyone who ever does an investigation, everybody wants to have a story to tell. Mm-hmm. So the tiniest thing might happen and they exaggerate it, mm-hmm. even not knowing that they're exaggerating it. They make more out of it than it is, and I've always been very careful to not do that.
Yeah.
And it's got to be so irrefutable before I can get excited about it, instead of, well, it could have been a shadow, but it could have been nothing, or that noise, it could have been something else, whatever. So I'm very careful about that. So I really haven't had anything until, and I also, by the way, whenever we go to a location, I think the only way to feel uncomfortable when you're doing a paranormal investigation is I always find out where the most active, most scary, I guess, part of the location is, and I go there by myself, because all these investigators always go with other people. When you go by yourself, it's far less mm-hmm. comfortable. And I like that feeling about, hey, it's just me, my camera. Sometimes I have that voice box thing that says random words. I forget what the name of that is. Anybody think of that?
Spirit box.
Huh? And so we were at Sansom. Where's that again? I went to a place that they said was the worst part of the location. I went there by myself with the camera and the spirit box, voice box, whatever. And I had a camera facing out and then a camera on myself talking, and during my walking around, I, for some reason, really lost my balance and almost fell down. And I couldn't figure out why. It seemed to be no reason for it. And right then the voice box thing said pushed. And I thought, I mean, again, could be coincidental, but it was kind of interesting that I lost my balance for no reason, and then it said pushed. But that's about it for me. I mean, there's other things that could have been paranormal, but could have been natural too. So, it's fun to do. I am fascinated by the possibility.
Yeah.
But,
That's pretty cool. So speaking of stunts, I was looking at your credits, and we are at a Comic Con, so I just wanted to mention that you did these stunts for Spawn, fantastic movie, Batman Forever, mm-hmm. It's okay.
Not great.
It's
not probably great. The least.
It's the worst one.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say it out loud in case I'm offending somebody, but I can't get through that one. Batman and Robin is fucking awesome, okay? And Demolition Man, another fun movie. Daredevil,
right?
And
most people don't even realize what I did in Daredevil. There's a scene where Daredevil's father, right, gets beat up in an alley by, Michael Clark Duncan. His bad guys beat up Daredevil's father, and that was me beating his ass. So, but you can't really tell it's me. So
yeah. And you were the stunt coordinator on a Who's the Boss episode?
Many of them.
Well, the episode that I wanted to ask you about was when Tony Danza was in a boxing match. Mm-hmm. Did you fight Tony Danza?
No, I coordinated the fight.
Oh, okay. You didn't get in there?
No.
In the ring?
No.
Tony Danza?
No.
Like, how did I not know this? This is a very interesting fact.
Well, what about Days of Our Lives?
You did
I did the stunts on Days of Our Lives for years.
Yeah, because, like, heavy shit happens in those soap operas, man. Murders.
At a
for
time, whenever, I don't know if it still exists, but there's always a ratings period called sweeps. And whatever episodes of daytime TV are going to air at that time, sweeps time, that's how they get their ratings and stuff. So all the soap operas started doing location stuff, because the soap opera is typically in a studio. But they would go out for a few days and do some action scenes, and so that when the sweeps time would come up, they'd get higher ratings because it looked more like a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I did high fall, fire, flipped a car, hung from a helicopter, all that stuff on Days of Our Lives, yeah.
That's awesome. And I was just curious, actually, like, what are some of your favorite musicians and bands that you listen to at home? Like, what do you listen to relax? When you're having, a bath at home, relaxing with the wife?
I'm kind of a metalhead still.
I know you are a metalhead. I was curious if there was any other types of music. Like, it's like people assume, you're in the horror franchise, that you only watch horror movies, but I know
Yeah.
you've also worked on action movies.
Right.
And I did also notice that you play a different character in all of the best movies. I think part 2 is the best one.
Yeah.
With Wayne Newton.
That's right.
And, but would you, if somebody approached you, would you ever be interested in doing like a drama?
Like what?
Well, he did comedy horror, but what about like a drama, like a really sad sob drama story? Like,
as long as it has violence in it.
it has emotional violence.
I did Monster.
Monster. Oh,
That
yeah,
was
with
a drama.
Christina Ricci
No, yes, and Charlize
and
Theron.
Charlize Theron.
She won an Oscar for it.
So then, what's your favorite metal bands?
Metallica.
Nice. I'm actually going to go see Metallica this year. They're playing with Pantera.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're doing like random shows with Pantera this year. So
First time I felt like a big shot movie star was when I went with Greg Nicotero, you know him from
Yeah.
Walking Dead and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He and I went to a Metallica show as, VIP situation, and we were, I don't know if they still do it like this, but they used to have an area within the stage
Mm-hmm.
called the Snake Pit,
Yeah.
and it was VIPs only, so all the musicians were all around you, not just at the front of the stage, you're within the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And we watched the whole show from there. It was amazing. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Favorite album though?
Black one.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd have to
For
go
me.
with Kill 'Em All.
Yeah.
Ride the Lightning is a close 2nd,
Mm-hmm.
but Black Album is pretty awesome.
I'm also a pretty big fan of Post Malone's music.
Who's that? I don't know who that is.
Yes, you do.
Who is that? Rapper? No, I have no idea. I don't. But I know you're a juggalo.
Yes.
Whoop whoop.
Whoop.
There you go. I
Yes,
just moved.
I do. I enjoy
I moved to a
ICP
new
and
city and I've
Twisted.
found out that there is a giant juggalo community in Hamilton, Ontario now. And I was like, holy shit, some of my best friends are juggalos. And my friends toured with ICP and they had the best time on that tour. They said that one of the guys was really nice and one of them was kind of standoffish. And I was like, well, I've never listened to the music, but do you partake in the Fago?
I have, but
But you don't go out of your way to be like, I need Fago.
no. No, it's not my favorite, but it's not terrible either.
Does anybody in the audience has any questions for Kane? You, sir.
How was it being in the music video for
Yes, I did, which is my favorite ICP song, by the way, Another Love Song, which I think is a brilliant song. But I did some stunts in that video, and it was fun working with them because Twisted was in that video also. They used to tour with them, and now Twisted does their own thing, and they're still good friends. But it was interesting, I'll say that. But it was fun. And by the way, don't forget I did some comedy films.
Which ones? Well, was that one on the beach?
Yeah, oh, God, yeah.
House 2, the second
Well,
story.
No. He did one before that.
oh, no, way before, yes.
It was like a beach
But look at
movie,
that.
right? Yeah,
That's-
that's
I'm
amazing.
going to show everybody. Check this guy out.
Yes, that's my hair.
Hey, your hair was also very similar in Wishmaster.
Not that big, though, was
Not
it?
that big, but it was mullety in Wishmaster. That kill, by the way, is amazing, I have to say.
Bob Kurtzman kept the glass door that was painted with my
Oh my God, that's amazing.
figure on it. He kept it at his house for
I love
years.
it.
I don't know if he
I
still
love
has it,
that
but
movie.
huh? Is it?
That's awesome.
But what she's talking about is hard bodies.
Yeah, Hard Bodies, that's it, yes. Yeah, you were like a bully or a thug or something.
I was technically, my screen credit was older geek,
Oh, geek. Sorry, the opposite.
and I was
got it wrong.
29 or some shit at the time. Older geek. I wore capris. Do you know what capris are?
I know what capris
Pants. Black shoes, black socks. My pants pulled up real high, and we were on the beach, bothering all the girls. What?
How was that different from today?
Yeah, nothing's different about bothering the girls, but. And then I did the Impractical Jokers movie. I don't know if you watch Impractical Jokers, but Q is a good buddy of mine, and he arranged for me to do the stunts and play Paula Abdul's bodyguard in the movie.
Nice. Straight up, now tell me. You have a question here?
Yeah, in Jason Goes to Hell, I just remember as a kid seeing it and not recognizing it until later on in life, but you get to kill yourself in that movie. How did that feel? Was that your idea? Or was that...
It was kind of my idea, yeah. Because I was like, man, when I first read the script, I was like, I'm not in this movie very much. So I should try to do something else, because normally I wouldn't have any time to play another character, but this time I did. So yeah, technically, I guess I killed myself. Not really, but kind of.
Back there, gray shirt.
How much direction? Pretty much full control. Even if you're stunt coordinating, part of your job is to hire all the other stunt people on the film. But as a stunt player, if the stunt coordinator is confident enough, the stunt coordinator will let the stunt person kind of take control of how they're going to do the stunt, because they're the ones doing it, and it might be quite dangerous. So you like the person to kind of dictate how it's done. And so you get quite a bit of control that way. And what was the other? Well, I was a stunt coordinator also on that movie, Frozen, not the animated one. Yeah. And we shot it at a ski resort in Utah, and I currently have a house not far from there now. It's kind of interesting to be up there where I froze my ass off for a few weeks. But it was, it's an Adam Green movie, and I love working with Adam because he did all the Hatchet movies and stuff. So, and I don't think there's another actor, horror actor, that's known for a character that has killed basically all the other horror actors. In the Hatchet movies, I've killed Jason, Derek Mears, Leatherface, R.A. Mihailoff, Candyman, Tony, Tyler Mane, Michael Myers, Freddy, and the first one, and I really don't think there's anybody else that could say that they've. And I also think that I've killed more people on film than any actor in history.
That's awesome.
Without a gun, I have to say, these days, because somebody will say, well,
Machetes are better.
But without a gun, I think I've murdered more people on film than any actor ever.
There's goals, and then there's goals. You were talking about Adam Green. I'm a huge fan of his work. I found that when Hatchet, right before Hatchet came out, I felt like there was this lack of slashers. The genre was, a little bit at a standstill. And when I watched the trailer for the first Hatchet movie, I was like, yes, like finally, like a fucking like old school, like 80s slasher is like making a comeback. It's making a resurgence. And like that movie was just so good, and I love all of his work, and the one that people usually don't talk about very often is Digging Up the Marrow, and you play yourself. Everybody in that movie plays themselves. Has you guys seen Digging Up the Marrow? I highly recommend it. Ray Wise plays this like crazy person that tells Adam Green like, hey, you're a horror movie director, I know where there's some real monsters. And Adam Green goes to investigate it, and he's trying to convince you it's real, and you're like, this isn't real. Like, what is this? Like a new movie that you're working on?
Yeah.
That movie is very underrated, and I love Holliston as well. Like, Holliston is such a fucking funny show.
Yeah.
Dee Snider's character just kills me. That is
Right.
such a fantastic show. But I do love that he brought this, like, he definitely, I feel he is very responsible for bringing back the slasher, like, resurgence in, like, the later 2000s.
And he first contacted me saying, I have a new slasher that's going to be several films. And nobody knew who he was at the time. And he said, I want you to play the killer. And I was like, oh, God, I've heard this a million times.
Yeah.
It's a new next franchise.
Yeah.
And so the more I talked to him, I got a better feeling about it. And then I said, okay, I'll play your character, but you got to give me a scene where I can show some emotion. And that's why I played Victor's father with the crying scene, because I wanted to show people, yeah, I can
Drama.
kill
There you go.
people all day long, but I can also do other stuff. And I just
Yeah.
wanted to be able to feature that. And he said, no problem. So he wrote it, because it wasn't in the original script. And that first Hatchet movie has my all-time favorite kill in it.
Is it when you rip the woman in half? Her mouth, like?
Yes.
Oh my
This
God,
way.
that part is so good.
Yeah.
That
What-
part is amazing.
Oh, it is so brutal and one take.
And like, cause the camera like kind of like goes around. so
And
you
he was
see, like,
so
all the
nervous.
angles.
Adam was so nervous because he said, we only have the budget to do this one time, because
man.
you're going to
Pressure.
tear the whole head apart, and it's going to take a week to rebuild and a lot of money to reconstruct it and everything. And he said, I don't want you to just grab it and pull it apart. When you grab the actress, I'm going to start a 360 camera move around, and that's where he hid the edit, going from me grabbing the actress and then taking the prosthetic head. And he said, please, you have to make sure you don't rip the head apart until the camera lands over here. And, you know, I knew it would be fine, but he was just so worried that he wouldn't catch it on camera and that it'd be wasted. But it's so perfectly timed.
I love it.
As soon as the camera lands, you see the head rip apart by here.
Like it's like you see the skin like slowly like ripping apart, like fantastic.
And then I take the top of her head off, and then her tongue is,
Yeah, it's amazing.
can't really see that so much in the movie, but.
Horror buzz.
Wow. Tricky question. I guess people love to be scared when they know they're safe. I don't know. I mean, it's just an emotion that, you know, is fun to experience if it's not real, you know, where you're actually fearing for your life or something. But, and I always found it kind of funny that almost everybody I've ever killed in a movie, after we finished that scene, almost without fail, they all say, God damn, that was a little more rough than I thought it would be. But then it looks better, and they understand, you know. You got to be kind of rough, but still in control so you don't hurt somebody. It was just based on, you know, having played different killers, and then people thought, hey, it's a cool cameo to have Kane or somebody that's known for doing certain things to do something else, because it's like an Easter egg type thing. And people always come up to my table and say, I didn't know you were in so-and-so, but I just watched it and I saw a little flash of you, and, you know. So I think it's almost fun for the filmmakers to do that. But the rise of Leslie Vernon, yeah.
That's a good one too. Right there.
So I just wanted to ask, when you were approached by, I guess it's Illinois County to do the kills for the Friday the 13th game, did you have any freedom to change or adjust some of the kills from previous Jasons that weren't yours?
Yeah, pretty good question. I mean, obviously, I recreated some of the ones I did in the game, and they were gun media was very open, because I guess they figured if anybody knows the character, I do. So they were very open to my suggestions about stuff, as long as it, you know, wasn't something that made the game too complicated or something. They were all for it. And, you know, I didn't really incorporate any other Jason kills other than ones I did, but, you know, I think I kind of should have, because
I was thinking more like, for example, just you did have to do some of like part 2 Jason's stuff.
like what?
I was wondering if there was just any type of adjustment that you may have made that would have looked similar, but had your own twist to it.
Yeah, I mean, not really. I just, if I did anything that somebody else did in the past, I almost felt like I shouldn't change it too much, because it wasn't my kill. So if I'm going to do recreate something they did, I think I should honor their performance by doing it the way they did it. And, you know, we have the new game coming out, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and comes out August 18th. And I did all the motion capture for Leatherface. And I tried to make that reminiscent of Gunner, because he was the best Leatherface and he was a good friend. And I was a little surprised they asked me to do it, because it's not a character I played. But then when they explained why, they said, well, we want it to feel like Gunner. And what better person than someone who's used to mimicking another actor's performance? That's what you do as a stunt double. When you stunt double someone, even if you're just doing a stunt, I always thought it was important to try and make it look like that actor. And so that it doesn't take you out of the movie by saying, that's a stunt double. It doesn't even move the same way. So I always tried to do that, and then I understood why they asked me to, because I had to mimic R.A. Mahaloff as Leatherface in Chainsaw 3. So, yeah.
Did you guys do the dance, Chainsaw?
Yes. Not as easy as you might think, because we used a real chainsaw like Gunner did, and that's fucking heavy, man. And you try and swing it above your head and do all the stuff that he did with it. I never realized how impressed I should have been by his performance because of that, until I tried to do it myself. Yeah.
Question here?
What was your favorite and least favorite stunts that you've ever done?
Like I said, the fire stunt in Part 7 was my favorite fire stunt I've ever done, because I was on fire, fully engulfed for so long. Most fire stunts, when you're totally engulfed, you're on fire for 10 seconds, 12 seconds, because, it gets really hot. And on that movie, and you always, as the stunt performer, you always hit the ground, and that's when your safety people know it's time to put you out. If you don't go down, face down on the ground, safety doesn't come in. And you go by how it feels. And you can't wait till the very last second until you're almost like it's too hot to stand anymore, because by the time you hit the ground and get put out, there's still heat within the layers, so you can still get burned even after you get put out. So you really have to know what you're doing and time it properly. But when I did that, when I was on fire for 44 seconds, and I couldn't believe that I wasn't getting more uncomfortable as I was going. By the time, if you watch the movie again, by the time I do go down to the ground, it seems like half the fire is gone, because I was burning all the fuel for so long it just started dying down on its own. So that's why I like that one. And there's been car stunts that I've loved doing, when you jump a vehicle or flip a car or something. It's exciting, because you never know how you're gonna land. If you do a pipe ramp, it's called, where you drive at high speed and you go up a steel ramp like this. It's just almost like a bar, and you take the car and do this, and then that's what makes it spin in the air. And you never know how the first impact is going to be on the ground, so you want it to be more of a glancing blow when it first hits. If it lands flush on the roof, then you're going to probably get a concussion. But and I've loved doing high falls and stuff. I'm kind of bigger than most stunt people that do high falls, because it's not an easy thing to do, and the more you weigh, the harder you hit when you land in your catcher, they call it. And so, you know, the only thing I never did, the only aspect of stunts I never did was horses, because I never learned how to ride a horse, and there's so many stunt people that are former cowboys that they're great on horses. So that's the one thing I never did.
Two things. I know you said you're getting up there and you want to keep acting as long as you can in front of the camera, doing stunts as long as you can, but have you thought about possibly getting on the other side of the camera with production or directing?
I've thought about directing. I don't have any real interest in producing that much, and I'm not a writer. I can't, you know, do that kind of stuff, but I have considered directing, and I think it might be, you know, kind of an interesting angle to have, especially a horror movie directed by somebody that you've watched playing characters, because I think it makes you consider it more, you know, and so I mean, maybe in the future.
The other half of that was, in all the Hatchet films, why could you not catch Daniel Harris?
How about Perry Shen? Never got that fucking guy.
From Hatchet.
Played a different character every movie.
Yeah.
It was almost like ludicrous by the time we got to the fourth one, but yeah.
My question was, after Freddy versus Jason was seen out of sequence with the other two movies, and it was supposed to go on to Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, and then Freddy versus Jason versus Michael Myers. What happened with that?
I think that most of that was rumors. I don't think there was ever a possibility of Freddy, Jason, and Michael, or Ash, because the only reason they ever did Freddy and Jason is that it was finally owned by the same company, both characters, New Line Cinema. So, because they could never work out a deal if one was Paramount and one was New Line or Warner Brothers or something, whatever it was, they could never get it worked out for an agreeable deal for both sides. I just think it was always something that fans wanted, but was never really that possible.
Well, they released the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash one at a comic.
Yes,
I thought was interesting.
right. Which I've signed quite a few times, that comic book. And Bruce is a buddy, so it would have been fun to do something with him. And Robert and I have known each other since before either one of us was known as our characters. So, yeah.
And my other question was, how much of Jason's Part 8 did you actually spend in New York?
Who knows that? How many days of shooting did we spend in New York on Jason Takes Manhattan?
3 days,
1
1 day.
day. The very last night of shooting was in Times Square.
The Ghetto Blaster kick is so good.
Ghetto Blaster.
Yeah.
The entire film was shot in Vancouver, Canada. And at the end of that, we went to New York for 1 night. And that will always be one of the most amazing days of shooting I've ever had on a film, because, you know, being in the costume in the middle of Times Square with hundreds of people watching, held back by NYPD barricades, and I'm out in the middle doing what I was doing. It just, it was just amazing. And I'm sure you've heard that I never took the mask off the whole night of shooting because I didn't want to ruin it for the people watching. Kind of a little too method, but
Question over here.
Some martial arts training, not extensively, but enough to do fight scenes and look okay on camera. Like you fight with somebody like Chuck Norris or something like that, you don't want to look stupid. So I did do some training, but basically just to look decent on camera. Because, you know, there's some actors you do fight scenes with that do stuff that you never rehearsed. And as a stunt person, you don't like that. The actor will throw in something that you never rehearsed and often injure you because of that. And, you know, I've had some experiences with that, some actors I don't care to work with anymore, Steven Seagal, because I think they're not professional. They're not, you know. Under Siege,
Yeah, you were in Under Siege.
Out for Justice, Fire Down Below. Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
Not really, no. I mean, the mask changes every movie too, yeah. I think it's just basically every movie that I did had a different makeup effects person doing it. And they all wanted to do their own design. So that's why the mask especially changes drastically every movie. From part 7 to part 8 was nothing similar at all.
Your face, though, in part 7, probably because of John Beekler, like that's another reason why I love that one a lot, because when you see your face, like it's just so grotesque.
Yeah, and
maggots everywhere.
yeah, when he first, we first did the makeup test, you know, it took 3.5 hours to put that stuff on for part 7. And when we first did the test, we did the entire application, and then we took it off. I said it looked great, and I said to John, I said, well, how many days do you think we're going to do this kind of makeup? Because I wear the hockey mask and for almost the whole movie. And he said, we're going to do the makeup every day for 2 months. Every day, 3.5 hours of gluing the shit on. And then the hockey mask goes on. And I was like, why do I have to do the makeup every day when you never see it? And he said, well, you do see it over here. And it's true because, you know, whenever I would go like that, you could see my teeth moving here, which looked pretty amazing. And even with the hockey mask on, because part of it was broken off. And then I kind of understood. I didn't like it because it gets old, man. You start shooting at 6 a.m. sometimes, and so I'm in the makeup chair at 2:30 for 3.5 hours before you start your shooting day. So.
And when are you done shooting?
And then it takes an hour to take the shit off.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's all glued. It's all pieces glued so that it moves with your face. And, you know, it looked amazing.
Yeah, it did.
I kept the dentures and the lenses. I have the Victor Crowley teeth and the lenses
Do you ever
also.
put on the dentures and like scare kids at trick-or-treating?
No.
Missed opportunity.
Huh?
Did Susan make you put the dentures in?
No. She doesn't want to see that stuff.
Got a question back here?
With all of the movies since 2009, it's been 14 years since we last saw Phil, and Peacock's got this new series apparently coming out. Do you think it's time we're getting the final 13th film of the Friday the 13th franchise?
I think they should. I mean, how do you do Friday the 13th, part 12, and not 13.
Good point.
With the son of Jason or something, like they're experimenting on Jason, they want clones or fresh tissue.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard any kind of rumors or anything about it, but I'm sure they will eventually
Maybe
do
you
one
should
more.
direct it.
Oh. Ah. You saying I can't kill people anymore?
You could do both. You could do both. Yeah.
Twist her head off her body.
I think we have time for a couple more. I think you had one right here.
What do you think is an underrated horror movie that people need to watch?
Underrated horror movie. I mean, I don't know if you'd really, I'm surprised more people haven't seen Monster. Even though she won an Oscar for that role, a lot of people have never seen the movie. And it was a small budget movie. And I think even with her notoriety playing that character, I still think it's underrated with all the other stuff because, I was telling people that we shot that scene where I played the undercover cop to get Charlize out of the bar so we could arrest her. We shot in a bar in Daytona Beach, I think it was, and it was at the actual bar where Eileen Wuornos was arrested. So we shot it in the exact same spot, which is pretty amazing to me, but don't forget that guy over there. He's been wanting to ask.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're all the way over there.
We all know each other. Yeah. Anybody that has played Jason, we all do these kind of shows together. We all know each other. We've worked together in other films typically. And even some of the guys that say they played Jason, but played the character for 8 seconds. Ari. And, there's quite a few people that did one scene, for instance, and as the character, and then they do conventions saying they played Jason. I was like, well, you did one shot.
As a child. Yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for coming. And it is a Comic Con, so I have to ask a nerdy question.
Oh, boy.
Are you Star Trek or Star Wars?
Well,
Because I know you played a Jem Dahar soldier in DS9.
I
and
did.
I think DS9 is the best one. Even
No, but-
though Next Generation is my favorite, DS9 is the best one. And I was like, I gotta
yeah,
ask
I did
you.
several episodes as a Jem Hadar.
as a Jem Dahar. Oh,
Jem
so
Hadar,
cool.
by the way.
Dahar?
No, Hadar.
Hadar.
Jem Hadar. So I'd probably say Star Trek. Sorry.
Nice. Don't apologize. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure and an honor to sit up here with you. Apparently somebody out there wants to sing you a song. And keep scaring children. And thanks for not farting. Thanks everybody for coming out.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.